Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, and in some cases, good morning. On behalf of Power Technology Research, it is my honor to welcome you to the PTR webinar of this afternoon. I am Chris Gerber, your moderator, and I undertake this activity from the Netherlands today. We are privileged to have participants from across Europe, America and Canada, as well as Asia. Thank you for joining us. PTR is a significant international force in commercial research, and their focus on energy industry-related topics has contributed to their reputation as one of the leading privately owned research firms in the world. It is therefore fitting, as one would expect from a research company with such credentials, that they lead the way in focusing their and our attention on the maritime industry this afternoon. Our topic is the state of port electrification in Europe, a topic of substantial importance given the current and global debate on CO2 emissions, e-mobility, and the importance of the maritime industry. The maritime transport industry is the backbone of international trade and global economy. About 80% of global trade by volume and 70% by value are carried by sea and handled by ports worldwide. It is an industry which, prior to the advent of Corona, recorded on average a growth of 4%. It plays a significant role in the energy supply chain. The maritime and ports industry will not escape the impact of anticipated green energy legislation and the move to ensure carbon neutral ports. To what extent are ports impacted by the Go Green legislation? What will this entail? What opportunities will be presented? What product innovations and technologies are available? What progress have been recorded in establishing sustainable e-mobility infrastructure in ports? Allow me to introduce our distinguished panels of this afternoon. From the beautiful city of Porto in Portugal, Duarte Ferreira, a country with a proud maritime history and not only the home of some of the finest port wines in the world, but also the home of Efacec, a leading energy, engineering and mobility company comprising several subsidiaries in different international markets. The Efacec group is considered as one of the largest manufacturers in the fast charging infrastructure market for electrical vehicles. Duarte leads the global business department team at Efacec and has pre and postgraduate degrees obtained in Portugal and Spain. He has worked for some of the most well-known blue chip companies in the world and is widely recognized for his entrepreneurial and business development skills. Secondly, from Waptec, Christopher Gnew. Waptec is a leading global provider of equipment, systems, digital solutions, and value-added services to the freight, rail, mining, industrial, and marine industries. Christoph is responsible for the shore power and shore connection business as sales and product manager. He has worked for some of the most significant names in the electrical manufacturing industry in project management, purchasing, and business development. He is co-founder of the European Onshore Power Supply Association. This association has as its mission to bring together key players to promote innovation, speed up installations, create and generate global standards, and by adopting these, create an ecosystem around energy companies, ports, and maritime authorities. Our third presenter is one of the bright minds at PTR and a market analysis dealing with new energy topics and currently focusing on shore to ship power. He is involved and the significant role Mustafa Mirza played in numerous international research projects, despite his somewhat youthful appearance, has made him one of the most knowledgeable and renowned research analysts on shore infrastructure, port systems, maritime, port and energy legislation, and most significantly also incentives offered by the various countries. Our first speaker will be Duarte, followed by Christoph and then Mustafa. Each speaker will have 15 to 20 minutes. This will be followed by a question and answer session. Questions to our panels or speakers can be formulated and presented by using the chat box. As in the case with most question and answer sessions, our ability to answer all these will be time dependent, and I hope to manage our session to such an extent that it will allow for most, if not all, questions. With this, I hand over to you, Duarte.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the invitation from PTR. I expect that you can see all my screen. Can you confirm that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Duarte Ferreira. I am the Global Business Development Director from Efacec, a Portuguese company. I'm actually headquartered in Lisbon, beautiful capital of the country, not in Porto, even though the company has its headquarters in beautiful city of Porto. So both cities, I am based there. Starting off and kicking off. So basically, Efacec is a Portuguese group that has been in the business since 1948, so more than 70 years old, operating across the mainstreams of the infrastructure business, so energy, mobility, and environment. In energy, we have been a proud producer of several technologies, from power transformers to switchgear products, or even automation products, which means SCADA systems and the like. Where, as you said, and you very well said, in energy, we're also an EPC contractor, so we also perform engineering turnkey projects to several customers in the energy sector, in solar, in substations, or in hydropower plants. Then moving on into mobility, it's true, we are a proud producer of EV fast chargers, electrical vehicle chargers that equip the main cities of the world, as well as sectors, including ports and the port authorities. And within mobility, we also have our transportation EPC business unit, which basically provides rail services to electrify the infrastructures of rail, light rail, and rail within ports as well. And then finally, in the environment, it's another area that we have where we are a turnkey producer of wastewater treatment plants, as well as renewable gases within biogas and lately hydrogen. We're also a proud producer of digital connectivity solutions to manage all the assets around a certain infrastructure, and we operate around the cluster of smart cities that you can see here. Moving on, so the story of Efacec starts in 1948. It's a long story. I will not really lose too much time here because it's available, and then if somebody wants to know more, you can always visit our website or contact me later on. But the truth is that the company has been always investing steadily in research and development and new solutions that are being launched into the market. We are pretty much a company that has references across the world, notably in the Americas, in Europe, in Middle East, Africa, as well as a little bit in Asia Pacific. And finally, this is basically the footprint of what is the Efacec Group is all about, with transformers, automation, switchgear, and servicing more in the products area, then the electric mobility, and then systems, as I said, the turnkey provider. But I don't want to lose too much time on the macro Efacec. I want to focus our attention on what's going on within the energy world, because this equates and answers the question around what happens also to our port authority around Europe. So basically, with the launch and the upcoming of the Sustainable Development Goal agenda by the United Nations, and the fact that the EU zone is really forging the Green Pact and the Green Deal, pouring a lot of funds into having the electrification of several infrastructure that produce the greenhouse gases. We absolutely need clean and secure power, and this is critical pretty much to all the sectors, including the ports. So that means availability, reliability, but green within the energy mix. That means that we need to cater for, when we look for solutions that within the energy mix promote the CO2 reduction, are available, reliable, and on supply, and can also obviously help to reduce the costs and diversify the revenue streams that we have in each industrial facility or in each sector. So going on, one of the concepts that Efacec has been introducing that is applicable pretty much across all the verticals of industry is the energy hub. And the energy hub is pretty much a modular concept that can somehow adapt to any kind of situation, whereby you can apply intelligent management system solutions for all your assets, including inside the electric mobility electrification efforts for the fleets, being it fleets of vehicles or fleets of boats or fleets of last mile vehicles, as well as looking for buildings or storing your energy. This is possible today with a modular concept that is available in the market, not only from Efacec, but also with Efacec. If we look at the industry of harbors, and if we look into the latest polls, this is information that we got, is from 2019. In 1996, the wariness and the main topics that our port authorities and the managers of those ports were actually looking for were different from the ones of today. If you could, I'm just going to put Clarissa to the left here. If you look into the energy consumption, which is really what brings us and reconvenes us here today, since 2009, it has been going up on the ranks of the wariness and the critical points for the port authorities, whereby today ranks in 2019 and 2020, I've seen the latest numbers, as the second most important topic for the ports as a whole. That means that the ports need to change the way they are supplied with the energy. The ports need to look into better ways to give efficiency to the way the port is operating, and that can be translated into several I will try to sum up some of them. We have the concept of, sorry here, Chris, you are around me, but I need to get you off the monitor so that I can show to our distinguished guests everything. So basically, clearly, the dock ships need to look into alternative sources of energy. We need to look into renewables, eventually looking into recycling and doing the circularization of the energy of some of the waste that is also given in this area. The upgrade of some of the equipment that currently today are probably working on sourcing of fuel that is not really clean fuels. We need to look into that as countries migrate and electrify their mix of energy supply. We can obviously also look into the equipments that circulate within the Port Authority zone, being it buses, cars, trucks, everything that transports the goods once the ships dock in.
We lost Duarte.
Yeah, I think he's having some connection issues.
He's back.
Hello.
Duarte,
Sorry,
are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Something happened here. I'm sorry. I am going to reshare my screen exactly where I was. Okay. Right. So as I was saying, one thing is to look into the infrastructure of how to electrify our fleets or any equipment that really works within the port. The other thing is looking into the railway that goes intermodality to be able to transport our goods somewhere, right? So that's another possibility to be able to make it more efficient. The other thing which I think is important to look into and to cater for greener ports is the digitalization of processes, the logistical processes. And this is something that big data and the Internet of Things can help. And obviously doing that and connecting that with better energy sources, it's possible. And with all of this mix, we have created, let's say, our concept or our view of what the Port Energy Center can be, being it greener, sustainable, and accomplishing with the sustainability goals from the UN, as we said before. So how can we translate in terms of the Port Energy Center? Obviously, there are several things that can be done. One is obviously looking into the shore power. How do we cater for the ships that dock, electrifying them? How do we look into the cruises, the tourism cruises that dock in the port, if it's a recreational port or industrial port, and electrify them or not, or even giving it other sources of energy apart from fuel. And then finally, the ferries, the more riverboating, shore power, nearshore ways of doing things can also be electrified. But that's not only it. Looking into the left of our screen, I think that we can also look into the smart buildings. Obviously, the buildings that serve the port can also be electrified somehow. As I said before, the EV charging, and then how do we cater for the energy that goes into the port? Are we actually solarizing it? Are we actually looking into aeolic? Are we actually looking into the recycling and the waste that our port authority generates? Can it be recycled, somehow transformed into energy and put back into the energy center that we have? Can we use hydrogen as a source of energy? These are questions that that are today in the energy agenda for a greener port in the port authorities today. Finally, and having a look into the way you connect the docking with the depot management system that you are doing by electrifying the railworks within the port authority, you can actually have better solutions electrified with tracks and substations or with automatized level crossings or depot management systems that the trains that arrive to cargo, the things that obviously the goods that come from the shipping industry can be electrified, and therefore you get better and better greener ports. So this is, let's say, our concept of port energy center. Moving on and giving you a little bit of flavor, and I think that afterwards the presentation is going to be available for whomever is interested. You can have a look that in the following way. If we understand the energy management system and the way we are actually forecasting our energy consumptions, obviously we can anticipate the obvious needs of EV distribution, EV fleets, PV generation. This today can be studied according to the consumptions that the port itself is having and planning in a 5-year plan, 3-year plan, or 10-year plan to transition all of the consumptions of energy that the port authority has into being completely green. But this needs to be done according to the investment available. That can also be done according to the agenda and the possibility of implementation that each port has, because you are not going to switch this overnight. This is a process, as I usually say. Obviously, you can also look into the multi-carrier energy management system, looking into several ways of having vessels that will be powered with different sources of energy. Today, we start already seeing or thinking about hydrogen vessels, electric vessels for nearshore, using biofuels, yes or no, not only for the shipping industry, but also you start seeing that also in aviation. This is still to be seen, but somehow the ports need to prepare for that. And then finally, the way to basically try to have the interconnections within the grid of the distribution of energy with the DSO of the zone, it's going to be important so that we don't run into problems of having clashes of supply with the utility company that usually serves the port. And so all of these options are options that need to look and cater for decarbonization targets, and this need to be done according to the agenda, according to the CO2 target reduction that is available, according to licenses, and according also to obviously the supply of energy that is available. This is something that needs to always cater for. This is what we defend: a positive ROI on the assets that are already existent and that can be retrofitted into being greener. The final point that I wanted to make on energy storage is that it's possible also, beyond the energy management systems that we're following, it's also possible to store the energy, to be able to store it for periods of when you have high usage areas and high usage timetables, and then obviously for the peak shaving to be able to do the leveling of the energy that you can use. Today, you start seeing some ports that we know using energy storage pilots, still in the pilot stage, to be able to decarbonize their sources, their energy mix, and storing the energy when available, to be able to use it later on for periods of high usage. In the power supply and distribution, this is also another way of obviously looking into shore power. Probably it's important to look into how are my substations powering my port. Are they giving me enough supply, yes or no? And this is possible to be done also with renewables. The same thing goes for the medium voltage network, where if we start having different equipments, electrifying the equipments, it's important that the network serves the powering of those equipments, mainly the cargo handling equipment, the port cranes, the EV charging stations that you might include, and also work with the port stakeholders that also interconnect with the port and need power to operate their own equipments. And then finally, the shore power on the dock ships. There's a lot of energy that is consumed there, and we need to be able to cater for its electrification as well. This is a one-way street. Electrifying is going to be the option, surely. With which energy mix, it's still to be seen and can be done with several energy mixes, as I said before. So in essence, and again, I'll just take this out of here because the renewable energy, obviously, there has several sources. And this is what I wanted to say, which is one thing is the Port Authority, the energy mix that it might use. And then the other thing is which sources of energy can I use, can I try, and are available today. And there are several, beyond hydrogen, waste to energy, solar or wind. Eventually, wave energy can also be a possibility, or even biomass, if some of the waste that is generated by the port can be transformed as well into energy. EV chargers, again, there are several ways of placing the chargers in my energy hub inside the port. Do I want to have a vehicle to access a technology, V2G? Do I want to only smart charge my buses, the trucks that are there, the cars? Which models should I opt to? Everything is possible today. There are already options available, even though the number of launches of vehicles will come and will really go upwards in the coming 2 to 3 years. Bloomberg expects that by 2025, the leveling of the cost of a combustion engine vehicle versus the cost of an electrical engine powered vehicle is going to be favorable to the one of EV, to the electrical one. And you can also have everything integrated into an energy hub by docking in all the fleet and with battery storage, with solar, and eventually even linking it to some of the equipment that the port authorities are using. Therefore, one of the messages is that the modularity of the energy mix, the modularity of the energy hub efficiency that we can have is adaptable to each port and to each operational port. Finally, other solutions for greener ports. Obviously, the traction and the railing within the port is extremely important. What we see as a company that is capable of bringing the retrofitting of all of these areas in terms of signaling, traffic management, level crossing, using 5G to be able to control it better, also with renewable sources, is that this is possible to be done. It's starting to be done, mainly in a tramway which is within the Port Authority's control. And so, obviously, the management systems for all of this, can everything be centralized using the railway depot management system, the SCADA systems to be able to manage all of the assets and the equipment that are inside the port from one command center powered by 5G, powered by renewable sources, and operated by the Port Management Authority. So in summary, and to end, because I think I'm already up on the 15 minutes, energy for Efacec is really around a concept, a modular concept. So we have our solutions in EV chargers, in signaling, management systems, or renewable energy. But these are at the service of the Port Energy Center. That's the way we look into the way the operational of the port can happen. And so therefore, FSTEC can be a good advocate with engineering solutions to help up to step up the greenization of ports around Europe and around the world. Thank you.
Chris, you're on mute.
Duarte, better? Can you hear me now? Duarte, thank you very much for a very interesting and energizing presentation. I now hand over to Christophe. Christophe, please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good day. Thank you, Chris, to introduce myself, and I will share my screen too. Hold a second, please. I think you can thumb up if you see my screen, please. Okay, you see my screen, Chris, and our audience. Okay, thank you, Chris, and thank you, PTR, to give me the opportunity to share my view and our view regarding the how port electrifications matter for us. Meaning that we are going to describe our challenges based on three major factors, means for human factors, technical factors, and financial and economical factors. Let's go to this one. So it's already described by Duarte. So means 80% of the world trade and is transit by sea. So most people or more citizen is located very close to the sea. And what we are thinking with WebTech is electrification and proper cut off some vibrations, noise, and air emissions. So as you can see on this big map, meaning that we are talking about holistic approach, so means every goods who is coming in by sea, by truck, by rail must be and have to be considered, meaning that we are today considering all these devices, meaning devices means materials and non-materials devices to cut off air emissions. Just talk about the human factors is one of the key points for us to design and to go to the cost-efficient solutions. Let's say whatever the solution. So it means if you can see on my screen, so there is a lot of stakeholders who interact each other regarding the port and the solutions, but mainly the top three of them are the electrical system integrators, such as Efacec. Both authorities means there is a worldwide speaking a lot of difference, and engineering and consultants, but not so much others. There is some political ways. There is a terminal operators, shoppers, and energy providers, and for sure also people who is running around the port is a shipyard. So meaning that in these slides, so we need to converge to a different interest. To go to the main challenge is to try, and this is our job, to try to make people seated around the same table at the same time. So this is one of the key points that I want to highlight on these slides, and to try to convince the majority of the stakeholders to go on the same direction. Although challenges that we face today is the knowledge and experiences from our customers. Means customers means two customers: end user, who is a consumer of the goods, and the third party, who is between the end users and us. Meaning that in some case, so you can see on the 4 quadrants, there is benefits are different between the knowledge and experience between the customer and or the engineering consultants who have to design or to issue the tender. So this is a second challenge and second human factors that we have to take into account, and you have to convince people to in our educations or in our spreading away our knowledge and our proven solutions and in operations worldwide. Let's go now to the technical factors. So means as you can see, so Waptec, so we are trying to implement some solutions. So means if we go on left top, so we are trying to introduce the hybrid electrical locomotives. Okay, it's already running in California, and there is some tests in Canada too. It should be also saving sometimes 30% of CO2 emissions. On the right, so we have also implemented some cloud and digital solutions, and the main reference is in POLA, Port of Los Angeles, and the figures are not yet disclosed, but we are thinking due to the implementations of cloud solutions, so we can reduce to 10 to 20% air emissions due to avoid congestions of trucks. On left bottom corner, so means we have solutions and electrifications of assets with running on the port, means RTG, STS, and also from AGV, means automated guided vehicles, buses, and also from some assets. And for sure, the topic of today is a shore port. So it means how we can connect the ship to the shore with our solutions. So means technically speaking, so means the cloud solution is one of also promising devices that we have to take into account and to promote in the coming years, and means decade too. Let's go now first to focus on shore power solutions. So means one of the topics here is to challenge a customer, meaning that we are not selling some standardized solutions, meaning that one solution does not fit for all ports and not fit for all applications. Meaning that if you travel around the world, so means each key are different. Let's say its requirements are different. So meaning that we need to take into account this difference, and we have to tailor-made the solutions on whatever the applications case, should be cruise, ferries, RoPax, OSV, offshore supply vessels, or in Navy applications. Just give you some little seaside, let's say virtual seaside of what we have already in our operations in worldwide speaking regarding high voltage and low voltage for ferries. So it means just running from the Germany to Spain to some other locations. Is not yet mentioned here, but you can trust me, there is 100 solutions in operation. A new coming now technical is to electrify containers, means a brownfield terminal. And we are now going to promote some mobile solutions, meaning that instead of to get some stationary pit to connect, let's say, box ships to the ground. So we are designing some mobile unit who is running alongside the quayside. It's promising also too, and we got starting to get in contact with a major port in Europe from France, Spain, Germany, Italy, and offer some on each side of the world, and on also to US. Another topics, meaning that a challenge, technical challenge for us is when we don't know the configuration for the ships and for quayside. So this is what we have designed, and in operation some fully electrical self-propelled vehicle for high voltage ferry compliance to RSC standard 8005-1. Sometimes we have to change our hat and say we need to issue some guidelines. So means this is what the latest document that we have issued for customers. So means how could a customer may solve the 5 major questions regarding a cruise solution. So means it looks like guidelines, but it's just a brainstorming guidelines. Okay. And for sure, to finish in a couple of minutes. So means a cruise is much more, let's say, the visible part of the iceberg, because the cruise terminal is inside the city. Inside the city, there is some citizen, and there is a lot of citizen who's crying and are complaints regarding air emissions, mainly black smokes, but not only. So means in some case vibrations is also argued, and the major case is in Venetia, for example. So means some of the solutions cut off vibrations, noise, and air emissions. So means you can see that on this picture. So means for cruise, so means every solutions fit for purpose, and for sure. So means one thing that to be to exchange a little bit regarding the price and the cost, meaning that the last one or last major factor is economical and financial way, meaning that we need to avoid price considerations. You need to take into account a TCO approach, meaning capex plus opex ways. So this is one of the solutions is design, or let's say sustainable design, to be sure that in some considerations, so means people thinking about green, so means our solutions may be comply or fit with their green requirements. Over solutions of the next one will be on the center of the picture here. So means the next solution and next carbon management system will be disclosed in Southampton in the next couple of months in Horizon Terminal. So means this is the latest solution that we can disclose on public side. And to finish, so means our in WAPTEC ambitions, so means we want to decarbonize the planets, meaning that we have some solutions, we have proven solutions, means materials and non-material solutions, to be able to fit for every many ports, but not only ports. Let's say a community area, and example a port of Los Angeles, we may have to expand and extend our knowledge and our solutions to this community. To sum up, to means 3 challenges: human factors, technical factors, and or economical and financial factors have to be taken into considerations to be sure that we are thinking in a good way for decarbonization to decarbonization the port or the community around the port. And in WAPTEC, so means we are designing our solution with such like because safety matters, easy operation matters, and for sure, so means globally decarbonizations matters too. I would say thank you again, Peter and Chris, and have a good day and take care.
Christoph, thank you very much. I think very important to take from your presentation is that it will require a holistic approach. Very importantly, I think also that over and above that, that each port will require a tailor-made solution. So it's not a question of one shoe fits all. One would have to look at the management system, and here I join the points raised by Duarte. One would have to look at the energy management system, the storage, and the power supply and distribution. Thank you very much. It brings me now to the last speaker. It gives me great pleasure to announce Mustafa. Mustafa, please, you have the floor. Please continue.
Thank you, Chris. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay, just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, it's fine and visible. Thank you. Proceed.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Um, I will be talking about the shore power market outlook, a deep dive into the European market. So today in this presentation, I will be briefly going over the different policies and incentives given by the EU to its member states to implement shore power connection. Then I'll be looking at some regional trends in Europe, looking at some countries and what are they doing to install and incentivize shore power technology. And finally, I'll be giving a small analysis of the future outlook and the potential for this technology in the coming years. So first of all, let me give you a little backstory of how we actually got involved in shore power. So we started with e-mobility, and of course, we started with the land transport. We looked at electric vehicles, we looked at electric vehicle chargers, and we did some really thorough research on that. But we knew that there were other transport methods which were looking to decarbonize and which were incentivizing with alternative fuel technologies. And we knew that maritime industry was one of the major sectors which was looking to decarbonize. And so uh, we started to look into shore power as well. And we built our expertise around shore power. And we got to know that we basically um, have the global shore power system outlook with us, where we have a very detailed installed base of shoreside power facilities in Europe. And we also have the pipeline projects which are coming up in Europe in the coming years. We were also interested in seeing the business practices, the standards and selection criterias being used to implement this technology. And we did a very thorough research on the Norwegian market about that. But now we want to expand that to the general European continent. Let's discuss about the policies and incentives. But before that, I want to mention some of the ports of our strategic interest. So here we can see that, for example, we are looking at three major kinds of vessel traffic: cargo, ferries, and cruise. And for cargo traffic, the main countries which usually receive the bulk of cargo are Netherlands, especially the port of Rotterdam being the busiest cargo port in Europe. We have high ferry activity in the Scandinavian region, in Finland, Norway. And then we have a very established cruise industry in Spain and Italy because of their high tourist numbers. Um, Most of these ports already have shore power connections, but we see that the potential for more shore power connections is much more. And we can see that there will be more connections coming up on these ports in the coming years as well. Okay, so now we have some interesting figures with us. Let me share those figures with you. Um, so shore power actually comes in two types, either a low voltage connection or a high voltage connection. And currently in Europe, as of 2021, 69% of our shore power connections are actually low voltage, and the rest are high voltage connections. But we predict in the future that the ratio of high voltage connections will increase because the size of ships being docked and using shore power connections are increasing. So we would need high voltage connections on ports in the coming years. We also have the installed base, the shore power installations from the year 2016 to 2020. And we can see a considerable rise in new shore power connections coming online every year. We have seen a dip in 2020. That was because of course, the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns. But in the future, we think that this technology will grow and there will be more installations coming in the coming years. Okay, so now everybody's talking about the EU Green Deal. It's basically the driving force in Europe to become carbon neutral by 2050. And it is also impacting the decarbonization of maritime industry. There are multiple funding agencies and incentives being given to member states to implement shore power connections and port electrifications. We have the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, or we also call it SENIA, which is actually the focal point in distributing the fundings for EU Green Deal. And in this map, we have identified main European countries which have the potential for shore power market, and we have listed down their main funding agencies and incentives. Here, an important country to note is Norway, which is the European leader in shore power connections. And that is due to Enova, because Enova was involved in more than 100 projects in Norway, in shore power projects in Norway, and has given more than 700 million Norwegian krones in incentives. Now, EU Green Deal has set its targets, and it has also set targets in the maritime industry as well. Just last month, there was a new EU directive which came out, and it is proposed that by 2025, all the 10T core ports, so 10T is the network of ports in Europe, so they require all the 10T core ports to have 90% shore power technology coverage for vessels greater than 5,000 gross tons. And by 2030, they want to increase this to all their 10T comprehensive ports as well. Also get a reduction of 6% in their maritime greenhouse gas emissions. Again, by 2035, they want to increase it to 13% up until 2050, where they want a 75% reduction in maritime greenhouse gas emissions. So this is the broad target for the decarbonization of the maritime industry. I talked about SENIA before in the previous slides as well. So we'll dig a little deeper into what SENIA is. SENIA is the central agency which is giving out fundings for both projects as well as research, development, and innovation studies as well. Under the projects, we have the CEF program, which is the Connecting European Facility program. It is involved in incentivizing alternative fuels in all transport methods, even the maritime industry as well. We also have the 10T program, which directly comes under the CEF program. And then we have the Ealing Works, which basically is a dedicated cold ironing or shore power agency operating in Europe. I've mentioned Trans-European Transport Network, or as we call it, the 10T network before. This basically is the nerve center of European ports. Also included are roads, airports as well, but we are focusing on the maritime industry here. So it has a portfolio of 83 core ports and 236 comprehensive ports spread all across the continent. In this heat map, you can actually see that we have identified the main countries and also given the number of the 10T ports which are operating in each country. So the 10T program has a budget of around 23 billion euros, and it is being granted by the CEF program, as I've mentioned earlier as well. The target is, again, it's to equip all its core ports with the shore power connection by 2025. So it's in line with the EU Fit for 55 program and the new EU directives, which just came out last month. And under this TEN-T program, we have some key projects which have taken place. For example, the installation of shore power technology on Port of Stockholm, also on the Port of Las Palmas in Spain, and many more projects. So now let's move on to the regional trends, which we have basically divided. We have the regional trends, including Scandinavia. So we think that Scandinavia is leading the shore power market in Europe, with Norway being the complete leader because it has more than 180 installed projects. But we also know that there's movement coming in with from Sweden and Finland as well. And there are multiple driving forces that's inhibiting this use of technology. We have different consortiums. We have the joint ventures happening between ports and terminal operators, shipping companies, and we have generous tax exemptions from the governments as well. For Western Europe, we have France, Spain, Italy as good and main countries where we see a potential for growth. Actually, the OPS master plan, which for Spain is we consider one of the most ambitious plans to implement shore power connections on the Spanish ports. We also have France's National Energy and Climate Plan. We have the National Recovery and Resilience Plan from Italy, which was passed this year, and it is the largest post-COVID recovery plan in Europe. So we see a lot of activity gaining in the coming years for shore power. We have Germany and Netherlands as well, very busy countries in terms of cargo traffic. There are multiple shore power connections already installed, but we see even more potential. There are multiple projects coming up in Germany. There are multiple joint ventures happening, and there's the clean shipping program in Netherlands as well. So all in all, we are seeing that shore power is gaining traction almost throughout the European continent. Finally, in my last part of the presentation, I said that I'll give a little analysis. And so basically, this is the top 10 European markets in terms of shore activity. It's the year for this data is 2019. The cargo traffic, basically, we have included the cargo traffic, but of course, shore power is also used for cruise vessels, for ferries, for ro-ros, for ro-packs. Here we can see that Netherlands is the busiest in terms of cargo traffic in Europe, with Italy, Spain, and non-EU members, UK and Turkey coming right behind Netherlands. So in the future, we can see a lot of potential in these countries for new shore power connections in the UK and Turkey, which are non-EU countries. If the policies and incentives being right in these countries, we can see, we can assume that there will be much more shore power activity in these countries. And finally, my last comment would be that Turkey is a country to look out for because it just became the latest member to sign the Paris Climate Deal. And it has set a target for a net carbon neutrality by 2053. So there will be more shore power and port electrification projects there in the coming years. So thank you very much once again for joining us, and over to you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Mustafa, thank you very much. It truly, and indeed, one of the bright minds, new minds. Your knowledge and experience is clearly visible in your presentation. Thank you very much for this. It also, I think, enables, all present today to have a greater understanding of the dynamics behind the business decisions and the legal framework, most definitely in terms of that, and also the subsidies. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us now to the question and answer session. We have a couple of questions that have been posed by for the panel. So perhaps if I could read the first question, and this is a question that would probably go to all three of you, most likely Duarte, but the question is from Andrew Tai. It says, for port electrification, what kind of electrical infrastructure changes are required by ports from utilities? And how important is the role of utilities in these projects? So, gentlemen, by all means, perhaps Duarte, if you want to start, to be followed by Christoph, and then by...
I wanted to make a previous note that Mustafa needs to investigate a little bit deeper into the Iberian zone, because there are already ports electrifying in Portugal. And I'm very happy to give you 2 or 3 examples of things that are being done across the board and across the country. So that's one of the things. So clearly, you need to update your research, because that's already being done in the country. So I think that the question from Andrew Tai links back to some of the things that I was saying. First of all, we need to understand the electrical system of each country, right? It really depends on the electrical powering that usually is powering the port. Typically, the port has a contract with a certain utility, and so for the way I'm seeing this being done by the port authority is that, first of all, they have a clear regulation dialogue with the utility company. Second, they are prone to use funds that are going to be available to put the greenization into the port. So that's another thing. And the utility companies typically, because they are also diversifying their business internally, and lots of the European utilities around the countries have already electric mobility operations, have already solar developers inside their own utility company, so they just don't sell electricity to consumers or to households or to industrial customers. They have already the services to be able to give the service to the port. So a lot of the options to the port authorities is actually to externalize these services to be able to have them powered by the electrical utility. So this is a clear trend. That's the way that is done, and also it might be possible for even the port to actually gain some money out of it. So if the port is having, let's say, a certain charging hub to be able to electrify their fleets, and they also opt in to do the parking lots of their ports and place, for instance, chargers over there by using electrical rooftops, for instance, and chargers, they can actually service the customers that are coming for the tourism areas or for the transit companies that do the pickup on the cruise terminals, to be able to charge their own fleets at the port. And with that, usually the operator, which is the company, can operate that. But if even then the port generates enough energy to be able to sell it back to the grid, they can even earn more money by installing the rooftops there. So in the end, the port is actually the real estate owner of their zone of influence. And therefore they can, if for the electrification efforts of equipment, of hubs, and even the powering with solar, there are good ways of making money out of it. So the role of utilities, I would say, is really linked to the way the port opts to open the doors for a certain little bit of externalization of services, as well as looking into ways of electrifying or solarizing the way they are working with their own equipment. Into that regard, typically that's done with a one-to-one contract with a utility company.
Duarte, thank you very much. Christoph, would you like to add to anything?
Yeah, so it means two words. So it means at the moment, so it means the port required a lot of energy demand. So it means so there is two major constraints. Now they have to increase the local power, some local productions, and all the infrastructure. So it means they have to increase the network. They have to increase the substations. They have to also increase the way of changing the frequency. Okay, most of the time. So we are in 50 hertz in grid, and let's say 80% of the demand is 60. So there is also a major change in infrastructure. Also in civil works, so this have to be considered in let's say a DNO or DSO scope of supply.
Mustafa, lastly to you, do you have anything to add? And then I'll
Chris,
go back.
can I just add one thing, Chris? Sorry to intervene here. It's critical to look into the grid as well, okay? Because lots of these equipments that are keep being upgraded and retrofitted into electrification require more powering, right? And as they do, we're working with installations or ports that have been there for quite some time, with electrical grids that have been there for quite some time. So eventually the powering up of certain infrastructures, even within the port, might be needed. But for that, there are subsidies, there are grants, and usually the utility companies tend to opt in and cover those costs for the Port Authority. That's an important point to be looked into.
Yep. Mustafa, comment from your side?
Yeah, so great points made by both Duarte and Christophe. I would just like to reiterate that while we were doing our research, we talked to many port officials in port authorities. And again, as both of the previous speakers just said, the local utility needs to add more capacity to the ports as shore power connections come online, because they are energy intensive technology. And actually many port officials said that their local utility wasn't able to meet the demand, so they either had to install rooftop solars or offshore winds, as Duarte said, or contact the national grid for more electricity. Yeah, that was from my side. Great comments made by Christophe and Duarte.
Mustafa, thank you very much. Another question that is quite interesting, particularly at this particular point in time within the European context, and particularly in terms of high electricity prices. This is a question that has been posed by Thomas Schelp, and I read it. It says, since high electricity prices in the EU can have a negative impact on the widespread adoption of port electrification technologies, are governments contemplating tax exemptions or subsidies in terms of the electricity rate to assist port electrification? And this joins then also the comments that have been made in terms of subsidies, the bodies that present this and make this available. Duarte, can I start with you again?
Sure, Chris. Obviously, again, I'm not a tax specialist across the board around Europe, but what I can say from my humble experience is the following. First of all, definitely there is a key trend to give incentives for fleet electrification, for storage utilization, for solarizing certain buildings to give it the greener effect. That's clear. There are incentives. They are different across the European Union. So when you don't have an harmonization between Sweden and Portugal, or between Denmark and France, or between Ireland or Germany, even though there are some key takeaways and key trends in the Green Deal, I think that each of the countries' resilience plans have a chapter for ports. Some of them at least have a chapter on port electrification. So therefore, the only authority that can actually apply for that is actually the port itself, right? Based on engineering studies, based on partners, based on partnerships to be done. So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to say based on this is beyond the subsidies and beyond the tax exemptions that you might get, there is a lot of capital available for these kind of projects. Capital coming from cooperation funds and capital coming from private funds. And especially in Europe, as well as in the States or Canada that I know well, or even in Latin America. But speaking about Europe, clearly for private capital, clearly for countries like Germany or France or Spain or Norway, there are funds that are actually specializing right now in solar projects, solar developments, and as they are meeting a lot of an excessive solar park utility scale development that we see across all countries now. They are looking for niches to be able to give industrial solar applications, solarizing the ports, solarizing the airports, to be able to also get solar and renewable energy efforts into other verticals. And this is these panels of investment, most of them coming from several countries really that I know, they are looking with interest to the ports and the strategy that they have. What they need is a good ROI, is a good project, a solid project from a port authority on how to change the energy mix and to be done, and that's possible. There's another word that I would like to leave at least for the cooperation banks. So when I mean by cooperation banks, I'm talking about mainly the European Investment Bank, but it obviously has funds and gives direct funds for port authorities, and there are some examples on that. When they present green deals, and as you know, the EIB is no longer sponsoring projects that are not green. They don't have the green bonding effect, let's say. And also the EBRD. The EBRD is not applicable to countries like France, Portugal, or Germany, but in some ports of areas of countries that also want to greenize, for instance, like Greece, that want to also have their ports greener, the EBRD is also sponsoring those projects to help to get all the countries at the same pace to accomplish the targets recently, let's say, reconvened in Glasgow.
Thank you very much, Duarte. Christoph, from your side?
So based on my experience, so means on the field side, so means there is two or three things to take into account. One is the price of kilowatt sold to the ship owners. So means in some countries, so you can say 5 euro cents a kilowatt hours up to 50. So means we got a ratio to 10. It's due to the mix energetic compared. So means if you go to Canada, so means hydro. If you go to Germany, it's coal. And in between, we got some over green energy. The second, so means we saw most of the time, so there is a changing in business model. So means if we now ports and GNO and DSO merge into a company who sold the energy to ship owners. So means should be also a trend to think about in the next decade. Okay. 2 or 3 examples on that in Europe is also acting at the moment, is running quite well. And second, so means we also think about a new business model in EOPSA, meaning that shore powers as a service, meaning that a private entity have to take care about all the cost, all the capex, and they have to make his business model for a concession period of time of 20 or 30 years to be sure that they can recover and to get some, let's say in 12 or 15 years, the breakdown point. So it means this is also the point number 3. So it means, and the last one, so it means if we got local in France, for example, one port is allowed to sell energy is Marseille. Okay. And for sure there is some, but politicians have to reduce the tax up to get very attractive thinking, because we need to think that the captain is say yes or no to shore power, not the port at the end.
Christoph, thank you very much. You also addressed, I think, to a certain extent, the question in the previous question in terms of tax exemption. Thank you very much for that. Mustafa, we're running a little bit over the time, but you have the floor in terms of your response, please.
Okay, so great responses from Duarte and Christoph. I'll just add one more thing. that is that the member states, the European member states, can actually ask the European Council for the authorization to apply for a reduced tax on shore-to-ship power, and that's actually in accordance with the Article 19 of the Council Directive, which came out in 2003, actually. And this has been implemented and has been used by many European countries, including Sweden, Germany, Denmark. So that was just the last point which I wanted to make. Thank you from my side.
And Chris, can I just add one more thing?
Of course.
As we know, ports of deep waters or of shallow waters, but mainly ports of deep waters, have a very interconnection with oil and gas industry, with the petrochemicals that usually these large utilities are there. If you look into, and now leaving a little bit the port aside, but going into the electric mobility arena, as you know, oil and gas companies, Total, Galp from Portugal, and others, Shell, BP, and all of the others, all of the big giants from all the countries around here, they are also looking into becoming more clean energy focused, and therefore they're opening up their solutions on electric mobility. Okay, really strongly, deeply involved and entrenched into public charging networks that they own or they create, or new models and financing even of those. And what I start to see is that the port, having their one of the stakeholders being an oil and gas giant that is just aside, this oil and gas giant through its own group is coming back to be able to serve the port back, to help them electrify their own, not only their own premises, that they are doing that through hydrogen a lot. Here in Portugal, the Sines case is clear, but also by giving them back clean energy efforts, by powering them with clean energy, powering them with electric charging capabilities, and helping them up in a consultative way, even to electrify their fleet. So this is a game that is made in partnership, that is made in conjunction by bringing all the stakeholders together. It's not really done in itself by your own, by any isolated company. It's done in a plateau where cooperation is key, and where the Port Authority is the center cornerstone for this particular vertical, just like the city is where, when you are in the urban electrification arena, when it's the port is the one that really knows how to engage and has this role of engaging with the main stakeholders to be able to bring them on the same table to electrify and get them more greener. That's basically, I think, the situation.
Duarte, thank you very much. Perhaps one last question, and I will combine perhaps 2 or 3 questions that have been posed to the panel. If I can phrase this in the following way, what would be your opinion, and this is a question to the 3 of you, in terms of port electrification? How do you envisage this in the next 3 years and 5 years? Where do you see the most substantial changes? And then perhaps also a question, given your experience, your research, and your business developments, where do you see the leaders at this particular point in time? Which ports are standing out, and what makes them so significant? So those 2 questions, if I can start with you, Christophe, and then go to Mustafa, and then Duarte, and then we will conclude. Please, Christophe.
So means what we are in daily business with all the port and all of the third party means engineering. So means the trend is everything must be electrified. Okay, everything is mobile must be electrified, from the trucks, from the locomotive, everything's RTG, RNG. So means there is no doubt about that. Now it should become in perhaps 1 or 2 decades to complete all of the to complete all of the ports in Europe mainly. Okay, I don't want to talk about ASEAN and APAC area. To go to your question. So what will be the leader? It's we got three solutions: cruise, containers, and RoRo and RoPax and OSV. Means OSV mainly is oil and gas area. Means Norway, Scotland. It's should be, and it's the number one at the moment, actually. If we go to the cruise business, so means my if I put some euro on a ticket, so I will go to Spain, okay, and mainly Barcelona, okay. If I go to container, it should be Hamburg. If you go to Europax, now it's a global region. It's Baltic.
Okay. Mustafa?
I totally agree with Christophe here, 100%. The regions are, the trends are showing likewise. The cruise industry will take off, and so we will see very high voltage systems, shore power connections being implemented on European ports because of the cruise industry. And if we move out of the European region, we see the United States also moving into shore power technology, with California already having quite a few shore power connections. And also there's a new shore power connection coming up at the port of Miami um, um, just next year. And already 30% 30% of the cruise vessels already are equipped with onboard shore power connections. So it's just the ports which need to catch up in the future. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Mustafa, thank you very much. Duarte, you have the final word and the final say before we conclude.
Yeah, from our experience and focusing on Europe, I agree with Mustafa on basically California. Long Beach is a very clear case. San Diego, another one. Also in Canada, there are already some ports doing very well. Vancouver is a clear case. But going back to our region where we are, and I mean, agreeing with Christophe, I prefer to take it from a different perspective on what energy mixes will we use, will we be seeing the port authorities to be implemented. And clearly, electrification is already a trend, but hydrogen will have its play. Hydrogen will have its play mainly coming from the vehicle side. When I say vehicle, it's not the car, it's actually the vessel. And the long haul vessels will take longer to somehow greenize, not to electrify, because I would believe they will come through hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen can be a good way to give large vessels and long haul vessels the green fuel that they will need to be able to reduce the coal, because it's a lot that this transport side. And because of that, the ports will also have to have an hybrid model to be able to have several clean power solutions available. One clearly is electric. Electric meaning and I say electric, is not only electric mobility, but it's also solar, battery storage, all of the technology that we spoke about, grid connections with the DSO and other TSO. And then they will need to prepare to also have hydrogen as an option. And with hydrogen as an option, it's not only the vessel, but it's also the possibility to produce hydrogen close to a port authority, because it needs to be warehoused. And there are already good examples coming from Holland, and in this case, Portugal, that have large projects on hydrogen linked to port authorities, which is also an important point. I would give lastly a word to circularity, because I think it's something that we did not speak too much about, but some of the ports that I know, and again, when we speak with them, with a colleague of mine that I have here, Alexandra, she's also here. We also speak about what kind of waste are you getting from your port authority as a whole, that you can eventually use as gas to be able to use to repower your own needs by installing, I don't know, a waste to energy solution center. And there are ports already doing that. It's something that they usually don't look at so much, but they will need to look into that, because circularization is another way of getting greener, even in the port authority. So I wanted to leave this word. So again, hybrid model for energy, hydrogen versus electricity, okay, through vessels or through even production, green or blue, that's still to be seen. And then finally, the circularization of the waste, which I think is an important part that can be done. The last thing is that, looking at ports, where are you getting the best impact from the investments that you are doing now? right? Clearly, the most obvious ones are the solar hubs or the electrification of fleets or everything that moves, as Christophe said. But the least obvious ones could be the rail tracks, could be the waste circularization, could be the hydrogenization of the port as well. So there will be, I would say it's a long run and a short run electrification, longer run hydrogen, but clearly the ports will become much better once they go through this, and they will need support. Not because they are not capable, they are, but they will need financial support clearly, and they will need all the partners that and the stakeholders that contribute to that to be able to do it in a constant in a ancillary way. Let's put it this way.
Duarte, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the final comment in conclusion. I would like to thank our presenters and our panelists. I would like to thank PTR for taking this initiative and highlighting this very, very important topic within the broader discussion and debate on carbon neutrality and the move towards this. Mustafa, thank you very much for sharing your research, the insights thereof. Indeed, a powerful presentation. Christophe, thank you very much for the very practical way you've presented this, the concept of an holistic approach. And Duarte, your knowledge and experience and your summary speaks for itself. I thank you all. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time. Bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.